Welcome, everybody. It's time to climb aboard your surfboard, catch a wave, and ride the latest in sales pipeline technology here on Sales Pipeline Radio with your host, that host with the most, Matt Hines. Hey.
How we doing, Paul?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. You look fantastic today, by the way.
I'm dressed up today here. I'm in a holiday mood here.
I love the holiday spirit. I mean, you always look fantastic, but you usually look extremely comfortable. I'm used to seeing you in like a t-shirt. Our amazing producer Paul produces our show from Southern California, and it always looks like
an engineer.
He looks like I wish I could dress every single day. He's like wearing a t-shirt and a ball cap and just looking extremely comfortable. You look great today, but there's no ball cap. Your hair is styled. You've got a great-looking sweater with a collared shirt underneath it.
Wow.
I don't know if you're going for an interview or something today.
Well, actually, we're doing some video testing later today here. We're going to do some video, too, so I thought I'd dress up here.
Very impressive. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for all the work you do for us on Sales Pipeline Radio. Excited to have you all here again. If you're joining us live, as we are here live every Thursday at 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern, excited to have you here. If you're joining us through the on-demand podcast that is available for free at iTunes and Google Play, thanks very much for joining us. Our job here at Sales Pipeline Radio is to bring you some of the best insights in sales and marketing. If it's related to the pipeline, any element of the pipeline, we cover it here. Last week we had a great conversation with the author of the book Sell with a Story, Lead with a Story, and even Parenting with a Story, and wasn't specific to either sales or demand gen, but was a great reminder that storytelling is a core part of managing your funnel. And today I'm very excited to talk with Jessica Fewless, who joins us from Demandbase, and we're going to be talking about the increased complexity of selling into B2B marketing, into B2B targets, the fact that the buying committee internally is getting larger, more complex. You've got already organizations that are increasingly matrix and difficult to get into. So we'll be talking about strategies to do that, and a lot about account-based marketing, which we actually haven't covered a lot in Sales Pipeline Radio so far this year as the frothiness has increased. But a lot of companies talking about, especially as we head into 2017, what account-based marketing means, why it might matter to their organizations, how they might make shifts from what they're doing today into account-based marketing. And so excited to have Jessica with us. Jessica, thanks for joining Sales Pipeline Radio.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Now, Jessica and I have seen a lot of each other over the last couple of months. We have Demandbase has been putting on a pretty significant roadshow to talk about account-based marketing and enterprise marketing. I was honored to be a guest at the CMO Council that they were part of a couple of days ago, and did a webinar yesterday. I think we're doing a tweet chat next week. I'm sure you're going to get sick of me at some point, but so far I'm glad that you keep sticking around and keep showing up for these. So maybe start with what exactly is account-based marketing. I think it's really easy to start throwing around, acronyms and buzzwords. But, if independent of the words in the acronym, what does it mean to you as you think about account-based marketing in the field today?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the highest level, I would say account-based marketing is really understanding who is your target audience and building a marketing mix around going after that target audience, and along the way aligning with your sales team on that same target so that you can deliver relevant messaging throughout the entire buyer's journey to really help them close more deals, help them close them faster, and hopefully help them close them with a larger average contract value. At the end of the day, what it does is it makes your entire sales organization that much more efficient. And from a marketer's perspective, it's actually far more efficient of an approach as well. And so, instead of, trying to throw as many leads as we can over the wall and hope, some of them work for the sales team, now we're agreed upon who are the targets we actually want to go after. Marketing then lines up all of their budget and their marketing mix behind those targets, and then really brings in only the leads that the sales team is looking for, and really helps them not just at the front end of the buyer's journey, but throughout the entire buyer's journey to really help affect their close rates and bring, at the end of the day, more revenue into the company.
So CEB says that there's now like 6.8 members of that internal buying committee that are part of making a decision about any of our products and solutions. And every time I hear that quoted in an organization, in a room where there are enterprise sellers, they're like, yeah, it's a lot more than that. Like, it's just complicated who we're selling into. So, more than just picking off the right targets and speaking more precisely to the right people, organizing consensus inside of an organization to help increase sort of focus and velocity, I think is a key part of ABM as well. Talk a little bit about what that means and sort of that internal buying committee and how how effective ABM can make sense of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really where, sales can feel the most support from marketing is around this entire buyer's committee, because typically what they're going to be doing is they're going to be focused on that person with the budget authority, need, and a timeline, right? That whole BANT model, because that's the person who's going to sign the contract, right? So that's generally where most of their efforts are spent. One, because that's the only person they actually have access to, so sometimes they act as a gatekeeper to the rest of that stakeholder committee. But two, they only have so much bandwidth, right? So they need to focus on that person who's eventually going to sign their contract. So here's where marketing comes in. And marketing, through the variety of methods that we have at our disposal, or the variety of tactics, can actually reach the rest of that buyer's committee. But once again, like I said, really in concert with sales to make sure that marketing is delivering the same message at the same time to that entire buying committee that the sales rep is delivering to that individual that they're primarily focused on, so that the messages are marrying each other, and marketing can help bring the rest of that buying committee along to make their sales rep's job a whole lot easier.
Talking with Jessica Fewless here today, who runs field marketing for Demand Base on Sales Pipeline Radio. And, that internal buying committee exists inside your own organization as well. And I often find, as we are trying to get our own organizations bought off on new initiatives, new focus areas, driving that consensus internally is a real thing. And so there's some ABM tactics we can use internally. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's important to sort of understand that when you're trying to make a decision where more than one person's involved in any context of our lives and business. But also for those that are listening that are thinking ABM and account-based marketing, account-based revenue activities might make sense for their organization, knowing that it is not just a marketing function. It is a sales and marketing function together that requires a real shift in ongoing process and strategy and focus. You really kind of got to ABM yourself, so and sort of make sure the rest of your organization is bought off on it as well. Talk a little bit about what that means, and maybe talk a little bit about sort of introduce this ABM expert guide that you brought to the marketplace as well.
Yeah, so what we were finding, quite honestly, in our own sales process, was that the reason a lot of our sales reps weren't making the sale was because their key contact at the end of the day would come back and say, love what you guys do and what you're able to do, but we don't have an ABM strategy here, so it doesn't make sense for us to invest in this technology right now, right? Like that, it was just that simple. And so, the light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, well, great, let's figure out how to help them get past that roadblock. And so that's where we connected with Matt and said, okay, help us put together a guide, kind of a success kit that we can hand over to these very individuals that are like, I get it, I'm bought in on ABM, but everybody else isn't, that can help them sell it internally inside their organization. And so what we did was we actually put together a 3-part success kit, the first being a whole set of talking points to all the different stakeholders inside the committee. So far, Matt's mentioned both sales and marketing, but finance needs to be bought off on it, because there's the marketing budget's going to look very different from before ABM to after ABM. Even the CEO, the C-suite needs to be bought off on it as well, because once again, the way that the sales team is operating is going to look a little different. And, in a perfect world, or even in a pretty good world, the sales team is going to be far more efficient. And so now the C-suite needs to be able to look at that and go, okay, so what does that mean for our revenue projections for the year, for our expenses, those sorts of things. So, not only does sales need to be bought off on it, as does your C-suite and as well as finance, but as Matt alluded to yesterday during kind of the Q&A section of our webinar, marketing can sometimes actually be the hardest organization or the hardest team to actually get on board with it. And that may seem somewhat counterintuitive, but, I can even say in full disclosure here at Demand Base, when we first rolled out account-based marketing, there was some marketing on marketing alignment issues. Like I said, for so long as B2B marketers, we've been focused on volume metrics. How many leads can you hand over to sales? Just kind of keep the fire stoked, so to speak, knowing that only at the end of the day, 0.2% of them would convert to close one business, kind of per the Serious Decisions funnel model, or waterfall model. So, it's really hard to let go of old habits. And so it took us probably 2 or 3 quarters here internally to get everybody committed to the quality versus quantity metrics that we had in place. And, quite honestly, the easiest way to do that is to put KPIs and, people's MBOs and their bonuses connected to things like pipeline which is obviously a quality-based metric, versus quantity-based metrics like hand raises or MQLs.
Talk a little bit about that cultural change that's required. I mean, like anything, independent of, ABM versus anything else you're trying to change. I think oftentimes, not everyone is bought off on any kind of change. Sometimes you've got people that have the same objectives but different ideas of how to get there. There's political conflicts there. Sometimes there are people that are scared about their job security. What are some of the landmines you've seen in adopting ABM internally that people may not be thinking about on the surface, but that can, slow down or kill the ability for you to make this shift?
Yeah, and I think this is where kind of having that agreement kind of across all the teams, but then also internally inside of marketing becomes really important. Like I said, there's kind of this shift from quantity to quality, which inherently everybody buys off on there, right? Like they say, you go to the SVP of sales or the CRO and say, hey, we're going to bring you higher quality leads through an account-based marketing strategy. And they go, sounds great. And then you say, but just so you know, the overall volume is actually going to go down because we're not really going to be bringing you any of those leads that aren't on your target account list anymore. And then they go, whoa, I don't know if I like that, right? Like we already feel like we don't get enough leads from you, and now you're going to give us less, right? So it's really getting behind that, and this is what kind of the success kit helps out with a little bit. It's how do you really explain that difference? And yes, it's going to be fewer, but it's going to be more of the ones that you want. And so your team, your sales team is going to spend less time sifting through the garbage, and they're only going to get the gold. So that's going to make them that much more efficient in what they're doing.
Before we go to break here real quick, give me a quick example of where you've seen sort of ABM sort of accelerate the path towards sales and marketing working more closely together, which I think impacts more than just your enterprise sales. It impacts the efficacy and penetration rate of all of your sales efforts.
Yeah, so it's funny. I go in to talk to a lot of customers and prospects as just kind of part of my job, and whenever I go in and talk to these organizations, they always say, well, who should be in the room? And they immediately go, well, the demand gen team. And I absolutely agree with that. But I'm like, it's really a whole marketing initiative. But also I'm like, get some of the sales team in the room, right? Because, the sales team needs to be bought off on this. They need to come along for the ride. A lot of sales leaders go, great, you're going to do account-based marketing. Here's my target account list. Now go market to it, which could be a place to start from, right? But, when it really works best is when sales and marketing co-develop that target account list, because then everybody's invested in that list, everybody's bought off on that list, and then the two teams work together. And then, because everybody's bought off on the list, everybody's bought off on the efficacy of account-based marketing, now you have less of the issues where sales reps will say, sorry, it's my account, I'm already talking to somebody, marketing, stay out of it. But now they're working in concert with each other, like I said, to help with that kind of those efficiency metrics, to help each and every individual sales rep sell more at the end of the year.
Absolutely. Hey, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back with more with Jessica Fewless from Demand-Based, talking about account-based marketing, talking about how to build consensus for new initiatives internally, talk about what we have coming the rest of the year, and wrap up. Thanks very much for joining us again. This is Sales Pipeline Radio.
It's no longer enough for B2B marketers to feed their sales team with qualified leads, supply them with content, and bid them good luck the rest of the way. Today's full funnel marketers are actively working side by side with the sales team throughout every stage of the buying journey and sales process, embracing revenue responsibility and measuring their impact based on not just sales pipeline contribution, but marketing influence on closed business and direct revenue growth. Download your free copy of Matt Heinz' latest book, Full Funnel Marketing, at HeinzMarketing.com. That's HEINZ Marketing.com.
In a world where the speed of innovation and change in B2B marketing has never been greater, the only thing bigger is the need for clarity, for a blueprint, for a guide to what's really working. And how about a way to apply it specifically today to increase sales pipeline growth, velocity, and most of all, conversion? That's what you'll find in the Modern Marketer's Field Guide. And amazingly, you can download it for free. HeinzMarketing.com, just like it sounds, HeinzMarketing. It encompasses the entire sales and marketing cycle, but in quick bursts with lots of specific, actionable ideas, strategies, tactics you can put to work right away, like today. The loaded table of contents helps you narrow in and tackle a problem. And it's something you can come back to over and over again as a reference guide. Why not download your free copy of the Modern Marketer's Field Guide? It's free. HeinzMarketing.com, just like it sounds. HEINZ Marketing.com. And now back to Matt and his guests.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks everybody for joining us at Sales Pipeline Radio. We just have a couple episodes here left in the remainder of 2016 before we start a brand new year. Very excited for some upcoming guests. We have John Miller, who is the founder of Engagio. Speaking of account-based marketing, Engagio is a great platform that helps marketers actually execute in ABM in a lot greater context. He's also the co-founder of Marketo. He is almost always the smartest man in the room. I can't say that about a lot of people, but he is an incredibly smart guy that has done a lot to sort of grow modern marketing. So excited to have John joining us, and we will also very excited to have Grant Cardone join us. Grant, if you are in sales, you know Grant. He is a sales speaker, blogger, influencer, writer, and has influenced, I can easily say, influenced more than millions of sales professionals around the country. Excited to have him come talking about his new book as well. Today, very excited to continue to talk with Jessica Fewless, who runs field marketing for Demandbase, and specifically about account-based marketing and really how to sell account-based marketing inside your organization. And these tips and best practices apply to really any new initiative, any new focus area you're trying to drive inside an organization where you've got a variety of viewpoints, objectives, perspectives, politics, you name it. Speaking of those points of conflict or friction, what are some of the objections that you hear, Jessica, in among customers? I mean, you're obviously, selling a platform that enables a great level of enterprise and more complex sort of modern marketing. I'm assuming some of the objections you hear from people in your own sales process probably are reflective, not necessarily objections to the product, but really concerns people have about adopting change and adopting something different. What are some of the things that you've seen in people's pushback on account-based marketing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, there's definitely the issues with the shifting away from the quantity to the quality-based metrics. That's definitely a big thing. A lot of times the marketing team will just say, hey, our sales team won't talk to us, right? So they're like, that's just a non-starter. We don't have a relationship with our sales team. We do our thing and they do their thing, and hopefully it all works out at the end of the day, right? That's becoming less and less common. But that's definitely a very real issue that we do here. There's also a lot of, everybody's comfortable with what they know. So like I said, when folks come from a background heavy in inbound's the way to go. Inbound's the way that we're gonna get our business there. They have a hard time shifting away to being more proactive, right? They've been trained, they built their career on that kind of inbound reactive kind of strategy. So now to make that shift to be more proactive, know who the accounts you want to go after, and you go proactively go find them and engage with them. That's another thing that's definitely kind of a tough shift for people. But, think the other thing, specific to kind of the demand-based sales process, or even, any, I think it would be for a lot of ABM marketing technologies, is just the budget. Nobody right now has an ABM budget line item. That's definitely a tough one for people to kind of figure out. And so, it's something that's definitely not insurmountable. Even if your budget is locked and loaded for 2017, if you decide, we're actually going to go ABM for 2017, but your budget's already kind of locked in, as long as you have wiggle room to shift that budget around, you can find the budget to actually engage in an account-based marketing strategy. And in fact, your budget's going to go a lot further when you're truly only focused on a target account list, because no longer do you have to pay the high premium for tactics that allow you to cast a wide net with your marketing approach, but rather, like I said, you're much more proactive, and so you can go razor focus on those 500, the 50, 500, or even 5,000 accounts that you're focused on, depending on the size of your business.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm glad you brought up budget because that's a really important component of this. I think, anytime you look at something like this, say, well, it's going to cost a lot more money. How do we do that? So you brought up some good perspectives on budget, but, help put that in context. And I think this is where a lot of companies don't do a very good job. They say, well, we need this money or we need this more investment to achieve, to do this new initiative. They don't always put that in context of what it's going to deliver. Talk a little bit about setting the foundation of outcomes up front, making sure that the organization, especially leadership, your CFOs, your COOs, and others, understand why they're doing this in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so anytime you can talk about more efficient budget spend and ROI with your CFO, he's going to hear bells and see rainbows, right? He's going to be very excited if you can walk into his office and definitively say, each one of our sales reps is going to be able to sell more. They're going to do it faster, and the marketing budget is actually going to be much more efficient and produce a lot more, right? If you can say that up front, they go, great, now they're going to want to dig into the numbers. But actually Matt was instrumental in helping us build kind of an ROI calculator for an ABM strategy. So just straight up, if you start aligning your sales and marketing teams, if you focus on a target account list, if you spend your budget in a manner that allows you to target only those target accounts, you're going to see a substantive uptick, not just kind of that, single-digit increase in revenue year over year, but rather almost more of a hockey stick where, like I said, across the board, marketing's going to be more efficient. Every single sales rep's going to be more efficient. And so at the end of the day, the company's just going to be able to sell a lot more products.
So talk a little about 2017 as we just, we're kind of around the corner here now. We just got a couple minutes before we wrap up. Tell me a little bit about where you see this all going. Are we looking at greater adoption? Is there something that needs to happen in the market in terms of early adopters showing more results from this that get more companies on board? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been at Demandbase now for 3.5 years. And so 3.5 years ago, we were kind of the only ones out there beating the ABM drum. Right. It was kind of a lonely marketplace out there, and it was one of those things that, 3 years ago we'd go to shows or, host events and the story was, hey, account-based marketing, it's really cool. Here's what it is. Here's why you should do it. And people will go, yeah, that's really cool. And then that's kind of where the conversation would end. And then, 2 years ago, it was more of like, okay, ABM. Yep, okay, this is something I should know more about. Tell me more. So they wanted to dig in a little bit more onto what does it look like? How does it take shape in an organization? How do you actually think about trying to implement something like this? But those conversations, 2 years ago would end with, yep, that's really interesting, but I don't have the bandwidth or the budget for it this year, so I'm going to have to look at it for 2016. Well, then in 2016, what we saw was suddenly this huge uptick in people going, okay, account-based marketing, yep, totally makes sense. I'm hearing about it everywhere. I get it. I don't want to know what it is anymore. Tell me how to go do it. So that's been kind of the big shift. And now, for 2017, it's definitely going to be tell me how to go do it, but tell me how to do it better. Right? I've been practicing account-based marketing, or we ran a pilot in 2016. We like it. We want to go big in 2017. So tell me how to do it better. Tell me how to scale it. I think that you're going to start to see more, user groups and meetups and stuff around the topic of account-based marketing. So it's not just these thought leaders out there talking about it, but it's actual practitioners learning from each other and really writing the playbook on what best practices are around account-based marketing.
That sounds great. Well, just real quick before we wrap up, you referenced this ABM expert guide that we worked on together. Great resources to help companies evangelize and sell the idea of and rationale for ABM internally. Where do people get a copy of that?
Absolutely. So on demandbase.com, we've got a whole ABM resource center out there, which has the success kit is out there for quick download by anybody listening to this, along with a bunch of other webinars around topics like budgeting and workshops around, how to think about building your target account list, how to get your sales and marketing teams aligned. So a whole host of resources out there if you're just getting started, and if you're, beyond the just getting started and want to really think about how to scale and improve your ABM strategies. Demandbase actually started last year an ABM certification program, which we're continuing this year and building out an advanced course. So, if you really want to get with like-minded B2B marketers who have already dabbled in ABM, that course is probably the place to go.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Thanks so much to our guest today, Jessica Fewless from Demandbase, talking about ABM and complex selling both internally as well as externally with your prospects. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today on Sales Pipeline Radio. If you want to get a replay of this session today and hear any of our past guests, you can get those at salespipelineradio.com anytime on demand for free. You can also subscribe to our podcast at the iTunes Store and Google Play, and encourage you to do that to make sure you don't miss any episode. And join us every week, Thursday at 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern, for more exciting guests, more great conversations about sales and marketing and managing the pipeline. And until next week, thanks for joining us. This is Matt Hines. Thanks very much for listening to Sales Pipeline Radio.
You've been riding the pipeline with Surfer himself, Matt Hines. Hines Marketing.